completing soon the strategic country dialogue, which identifies the priorities for us to work with Jamaica, and it's going to be around innovation and competitiveness.
How would you describe the prevailing recommended development policy that is pursued and advocated by the World Bank, particularly for small developing countries such as Jamaica?
Basically, I think the development still focuses obviously on how can we reduce poverty and have shared prosperity. And shared prosperity is about growth, but making sure that your growth is being shared more equitably in your population. So I think that vision of development for the World Bank group has not changed. But we are facing different challenges. The context of what we are doing with development has changed a lot, especially in the last 2 years. So basically, we've had multiple crises, starting with the pandemic and then also conflict with the Ukraine war and the climate crisis. And I think especially for small island development states like Jamaica, obviously natural disasters and risks coming out of climate have increased, and the frequency of climate-related disasters have probably increased, and that is a big concern. So how do you deal with shocks? How do you build resilience? Also must be part of the development story, and it is climate related. But then how do you, as a country like Jamaica, how do you develop the resilience against the external shocks? And actually Jamaica has done pretty well, first by making sure your fiscal sustainability is in place. For the last 6 years or so, you've been developing a very good fiscal sustainability model, reduced your debt, and put on track a very good trajectory for managing debt. Of course, the pandemic led to an increase in debt, but you were able to reduce your debt back more recently, so you're on a good track. And you're also introducing climate risk financing, like with the cat bond, which is very innovative instrument. And then, of course, we must do all the disaster risk resilience and management, which is something the World Bank Group is doing with Jamaica.
The cat bond would have been the most recent program with the World Bank. Is there scope for development on that, whether enhancing coverage? When do you review, for example, to see how you move forward?
I think it's been a very so far successful model, and it's been hailed as a very innovative financial instrument. I think it just was selected as an award to be awarded one of the most innovative financing instruments. So I can see that it could be extended, for instance, because it finishes December 23. So one thing would be to extend it and maybe increase the amount. And there's some talk about making it a Caribbean cat bond, because it seems like this has been a successful model. And then there are other instruments that we have, like the catastrophe drawdown options, which is another instrument that we can also expand and improve on, so that we can have more coverage and more insurance when you have a catastrophe. But short of insurance type of instruments, I think a big task would be to really develop the overall resilience and that will reduce the damage when the catastrophe occurs.
Would it be correct to say at this time you would be reviewing the package of programs with Jamaica to see what your next envelope of projects will be?
Yes, it's an ongoing discussion, and we are right now going to be completing soon the strategic country dialogue, which identifies the priorities for us to work with Jamaica, and it's going to be around innovation and competitiveness. It's around resilience. What's the second one? Blanking out on the second one. Can I look it up?
Yes.
I forgot the second one, but There were three priorities. I remember the two. What was the third one? The third one was strengthening and harnessing human capital. So we're doing a lot of work with the Jamaican government on education, for instance, health and education and social protection. And then on the on infrastructure, addressing the infrastructure constraints. I think the road in the north, which has been announced, if I'm not mistaken. They were saying that it was announced right after the traffic jam over Easter. And then we're talking to the government also about broadband. And we are working also on the Broadwalk, right? The waterfront. So the Kingston, what do you call it? Kingston Broadwalk, yeah. So and we are talking to the government also on urban renewal. Yeah, because this is also going to be important to be able to develop Kingston and maybe other areas, but at the moment the focus is on Kingston, because urban renewal will create new opportunities for work, and it is, I think, part also of the further development of business processing outsourcing hubs in these urban areas.
One of the criticisms of the World Bank, as it has been of the IMF, IDB, other multilaterals, is that your programs get countries into more debt. I know over time the IFC has been doing more private sector partnership-led activities. What's the split now in terms of looking at your programs in Jamaica, debt as opposed to equity financing?
Well, we try to do both, as you said, and really what the World Bank group does is we do a couple of things, and one of the things we do is provide analytics and knowledge and technical assistance so that we can design the policies and the projects that you want to implement to deliver on these policies. And so that's one part which doesn't involve debt, right? And then there are loans that will help develop projects. But a lot of this is actually intended to drive other investments, other partners to come in, including the private sector, right? So, and IFC is increasingly being involved in bringing in the private sector for especially like some of the infrastructure and the digital as well as, so like the broadband and some of the digital, the ideas around digital, and even with potentially down the road for energy would involve private sector.
World Bank is one of the Bretton Woods institutions created out of the last World War for global reconstruction and development. The circumstances around the world now suggest the need for another massive reconstruction of the kind coming out of 1944. And is the World Bank, like other institutions, adequately financed? And how would you put yourself in a position of resource sufficiency to deal with that massive reconstruction after Ukraine, after COVID, and for the longer term?
Well, we for now we have identified this 170 billion for the next 15 months, and we'll work on that. And what we have done is we just came out of a IDA for the low income countries. We just came out of a replenishment, and the new cycle will begin actually now, right? So it's that part is adequately financed, and it can be replenished like it did just recently. So that's I think for the low income countries, we feel that's already a very good and stable model. And then for the other for the IBRD component, what we are doing is optimizing our balance sheet, also figuring out as much as possible to maximize what we can use right now. And so for now, we think this is adequate, and we will just focus on delivering in a very effective and effective way the urgent needs in the short term, as well as continuing to address the medium-term development needs. And for us, it's also not just about financing. I just wanted to emphasize that. A lot of it is about making sure that countries have the right policies and the right frameworks to implement both the response to the food crisis or fuel crisis or slower growth and higher inflation, and understand what are the structural reforms they need to have the future growth. Because getting basically, you have a slow growth situation worldwide and in your own countries. How do you have higher growth? It is about investment. So you need to have the enabling environment to be able to drive investment. So and that's really important in my view. And so countries don't just need financing; they will also need sensible advice that we hope that we can also be supporting them on.